Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to the Nigerian Canada side event today. We're happy to have you. Please, if you will just crave your indulgence, can we please rise up for the Nigerian national anthem? It's going to be on the screen. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you very much. Please be seated. Once again, I just want to welcome you today. We really have a full room and we're excited and we're happy to have everyone here today. I think the barcode is on the screen to scan the agenda, or if you have the physical copy, we'll just go ahead with that. So first on the list is we're going to be welcoming the MD of GACN to give us an opening and welcome remark. And just to say a few words about him, the MD, Mr. Chijioke Uzoho, is a seasoned energy professional with about 2 decades of extensive experience in oil and gas industry. Following his secondment from the NNPC Limited, he is now serving as the Managing Director of Gas Aggregator Company Nigeria Ltd, by guarantee GACN, the host of this event, in collaboration with CarbonAi. He's the managing director and he plays a pivotal role in guiding the company through the implementation of its expanded mandates after the PIA, the Petroleum Industry Act of 2021. With his strategic business development and strategic leadership skills, Mr. Uzoho is passionate about driving business growth, building strategic partnerships, and delivering value to customers and stakeholders. He is very instrumental and was very instrumental in steering the market-driven solutions, overseeing critical commercial aspects such as gas sourcing, upstream gas commercialization, business development in GACN, which expands to the Nigerian gas market. Please, with a round of applause, please let's welcome the MD of GACN to take his opening and welcome remark.
My Honorable Minister for State Gas, Honorable Prepepo, again, sir, thank you again for honoring our invitation. The SNMDPRA, Mr. Rabiu Omar, we're delighted to have you here. Thank you, sir. Distinguished guests, esteemed partners, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Before I start, just also to recognize some of my colleagues who couldn't make it here today. Tayo Rosvival, who is the major anchor for today's engagement, couldn't be here today. She had a new baby and so could not make it. Mariam Saleh also, who's heads our sustainability desk, couldn't be here. She lost her dad yesterday. But we're all here to hold forth for her. So thank you again. On behalf of the Gas Aggregator Company Nigeria Ltd, by guarantee GACN, our partners, CarbonAi, and the Canadian High Commission, it is my pleasure to welcome you to this session of the sideline of the Energy Show here in Calgary. This is actually our third runoff in terms of this collaboration. Just again to say thank you again to the great family we found in CarbonAi and the commission here. Thank you. Also to say thank you to the Nigerian delegates, our speakers, and all participants for being here. Your presence signals exactly the kind of commitment that moves conversation into action. The theme for today is Partnership for a Sustainable and Secured Energy Future, Advancing Nigerian-Canadian Trade, Investment, and Gas Commercialization. And it's not an aspiration. It reflects the global energy market reality today. The energy landscape has shifted significantly. Energy security has reasserted itself as the primary organizing principle for governments across every region. The conversation is no longer a binary choice between fossil fuel or renewable. It is about sequencing. It is about pragmatism and building systems resilient enough to serve growing populations while progressively reducing emissions. Gas sits at the center of that sequencing, globally and critically for Africa. For Nigeria, the priorities are clear and urgent. We must expand energy access for 90 million Nigerians without reliable power. We must drive industrialization and job creation for a population growing faster than infrastructure can keep pace. And we must do both while managing our emission trajectory responsibly. This is not a contradiction, but it requires a practical, development-focused approach to transition, one that treats gas as the infrastructure backbone upon which most credible energy future will be built. Nigeria's gas opportunity is substantial. Over 250 TCF of proven reserve, significant associated gas still being fled, a domestic market operating at a fraction of its demand potential, and a pipeline and distribution infrastructure network that needs critical capital, technology, and expertise at scale. Canada brings exactly what this moment requires. Deep capital market, world-class emission management technology, institutional expertise in gas infrastructure financing, and a genuine appetite for long-term energy partnership that creates durable commercial value. At GACN, we sit at the intersection of government policies, commercial transactions, and infrastructure. Our mandate is to facilitate, to create the institutional and commercial linkage that converts opportunity into bankable outcomes. We have been doing that in the domestic market, in the power sector supply chain, and increasingly in the broader regional energy architecture. Our current purpose is to scale that role. And this session is a deliberate step towards extending our facilitation to the Nigerian-Canadian partnership. Our conversations today will not be about potentials. We're here to identify specific bankable and executable opportunities and to leave Calgary with a clear path to deliver on them. To this end, we have deliberately assembled market development stakeholders like yourself, because the challenges we are addressing do not yield to any single actor working alone. Today's discussion will span investment opportunities in gas infrastructure, methane reduction and flare gas commercialization, carbon market readiness, finance structures, and practical pathways for Nigerian-Canadian Energy Corporation to deliver measurable impact within a defined time frame. Our shared expectation is that the engagement today strengthens relationships, opens concrete channels for collaboration and generates actionable commitment. Thank you for being here. I wish us a productive and effective session. Thank you.
Thank you, MD of GACN, for that welcome remarks. We've all heard it. We're here to collaborate. We're here to move things forward together, Nigeria and Canada. Before we move on to the next bit of the agenda, please, I would like to apologize. I did not introduce myself. My name is Ekene Ebenebe. I work with GACN, and I serve as the commercial officer in GACN, leading the new business innovation unit. So we're going to be moving on to the goodwill messages, and it's safe to say that we have our Canadian representative here from the Global Affairs Canada, the regional director for Global Affairs Canada, in the person of Megan Pelton. She's been the director for the Global Affairs Canada for Alberta and the Northwest Territories, and she brings over 20 years experience in federal and provincial public service roles. Megan has held numerous assignments with Canada's Foreign Service, both at headquarters and abroad, advancing Canada's international economic and foreign policy interests. Her career spans trade policy, trade promotions, Latin American relations, international indigenous affairs, and human rights. Megan served at the Embassy of Canada in Santiago, Chile, from 2009 to 2012, and she was the Director of Stakeholder Relations at Alberta's Department of Economic Development, Trade and Tourism from 2018 to 2020. She holds a bachelor's degree, Bachelor's of Honors in Political Studies from Queen's University, and is fluent in English, Spanish, and French. Please, with a warm welcome, let's welcome Megan. Thank you.
Hello, I'm delighted to be here, and I'm thrilled to see such a large and energetic crowd. First, I would like to acknowledge the Right Honourable Minister Aperkipe Ikpo. Canada's delighted that you're here. And to everybody else who has traveled from Nigeria to be at the Global Energy Show, on behalf of Global Affairs Canada, on behalf of the Government of Canada, welcome to Calgary, welcome to Canada. We hope you have a very fruitful visit here. We're very pleased that you're here. I'd also like to thank our hosts, CarbonAi and GACN, for putting on this wonderful event for us today. Really looking forward to this collaboration and to hearing from our different speakers in terms of how we can strengthen this relationship. I think that the strong attendance here is really, it speaks to this growing trade and investment relationship between our countries. And it really highlights the value of bringing partners together. There are many things we can do virtually, but having you here in this room, having face-to-face conversations throughout this conference, that's where things get done, and we're really pleased to have you. At Global Affairs Canada, we are well positioned to support Canada's engagement in Africa, including with Nigeria, by helping businesses to connect, collaborate, and unlock commercial opportunities. The Canadian Trade Commissioner Service is focused on supporting companies. I know that many of you have been working with us with the capacity and ambition to expand globally, helping them to translate these relationships that they're building into commercial value and into commercial deals. So across Africa, we have our Trade Commissioner Service network. It includes 50 trade commissioners and 12 senior trade commissioners in 22 offices across the continent, providing on-the-ground support to help Canada and local partners to navigate these markets and to build these lasting partnerships. We are committed to strengthening economic cooperation with dynamic economies across Africa, including in the sector of energy, while also diversifying trade and relationships across the region. We see Nigeria as one of those key partners in Africa, and we're looking to build even stronger relationships. Nigeria is also central to Canada's New Africa strategy, which I'm sure many of you have read, which focuses on shared prosperity, stronger economic ties, and creating opportunities for Canadian and African partners to work together in practical ways. The Canada-Nigeria partnership is grounded in mutual interests and shared opportunity, but its real strength lies in relationships that enable businesses on both sides to collaborate and grow together over the long term. Commercial trade remains the cornerstone of this Canada-Nigeria relationship. It is the second largest merchandise and trading partner in Africa, with bilateral trade reaching $3.2 billion in 2025. Canadian exports to Nigeria grew by 56% over the previous year, underscoring the strong momentum that this commercial potential can have and be realized for deeper engagement. Both Canada and Nigeria have economies closely tied to the energy sector, which presents clear opportunities for collaboration, particularly in natural gas, emissions reduction, and clean technologies, where Canadian expertise and technology can help to unlock this supply chain. Strengthening commercial ties in energy will also support shared priorities around energy security and emissions reduction, while helping address Nigeria's unmet electricity demand. Looking ahead, Nigeria's demographic growth and economic ambitions present significant opportunities for Canada to engage, invest, and innovate. Realizing this potential will depend on continued collaboration and strong commercial partnerships. More broadly, Canada wants to be seen as a long-term, reliable partner for you, and beyond financing, we bring technical expertise, responsible business practices, and a strong interest in building partnerships that create lasting economic and development partnerships for both Nigerians and Canadians. By working together and deepening these relationships, we can unlock new sources of value and create lasting economic benefits for both countries. So please continue to work closely with the regional office in Calgary. If you are a Canadian company, we have Nicole Harbauer in the back, who is part of our Trade Commissioner service here. And I'm sure that many of you also know Godwin. Where's Godwin? Oh, he's back here. Many of you have worked with Godwin. He requires no introduction, but he is with our High Commission, and continue to please work with all of us. We are here to help. The Trade Commissioner Service is here to support you. We're thrilled that you're here this week. Welcome to Calgary. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Megan. It's good to know that you are ready to support us as much as you can. And of course, we know Godwin. We've been disturbing Godwin and will continue to disturb Godwin. Thank you for that. So we'll be taking another goodwill message by nobody else but the Authority Chief Executive of NMDPRA, Mr. Rabiu Abdullahi Umar. Mr. Rabiu is a distinguished business leader and energy executive with over 25 years of experience driving strategic transformation, commercial growth, and operational excellence across the energy, manufacturing, and agricultural sector. Throughout his career, he has successfully led large-scale business turnarounds, commercial optimization initiatives, and complex multi-country operations across Africa. He currently serves as the Chief Executive of the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, NMDPRA, where he is providing leadership in advancing regulatory frameworks that supports sustainable energy development, investment attraction, and Nigeria's broader industrialization objectives. Widely respected for his strategic insights, Mr. Rabiu has transformational leadership and deep understanding of Africa's evolving energy landscape. He brings a unique perspective on regulation, investment, and energy security and sustainable economic development. Please let's welcome Mr. Rabiu Abdullahi Umar for his goodwill message.
Your Excellency, the Minister of Petroleum Gas, Right Honorable Ekpere Kweekpo, my brother, the MD of GACN, Mr. Chijuke Uzoho, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's a distinct pleasure to extend my warmest goodwill and greetings from the Nigeria Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority to everyone gathered here in Calgary for the GACN CarbonAi side event at the Global Energy Show, GES Canada 2026. Calgary has long been recognized as a global epicenter of energy innovation. It is the perfect backdrop for us to forge partnerships that transcend traditional energy trade and look boldly towards a sustainable, secure energy future. Nigeria is undergoing a profound narrative shift. We are moving away from traditional reserve-based pride over our massive 215 trillion cubic feet of gas and pivoting decisively towards utilization-driven performance. Through our Decade of Gas initiative, we're executing a comprehensive economic transition to become a gas-powered industrial economy and position natural gas as our primary bridge towards net zero targets. As a regulator, our commitment to you is regulatory enablement. Backed by the Petroleum Industry Act, we have established an absolute fiscal predictability, transparent tariff system, as well as an open access rules to eliminate uncertainty and welcome private capital with confidence. Furthermore, our environmental commitments are opening up unprecedented flare-to-value opportunities. By turning methane abatement into a commercial framework, we see immediate high-margin B2B opportunities that match Canada's world-class clean technology, especially in emissions tracking and leak detection with local Nigerian execution. Let this forum mark the moment we move from dialogue to practical implementation, whether through establishing a Nigeria-Canadian Joint Action Committee or launching the methane abatement sandbox pilots, or forging a joint venture in downstream LPG and CNG retail networks. The market is set and the doors are wide open. Together, by combining Nigeria's vast reserves and market demand with Canada's world-class technology and capital, we can build a triple bottom line partnership that drives industrial growth, ensures fiscal success, and measurably reduce global emissions. I wish you all a productive and highly impactful and collaborative forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief Executive. He has told us we need to move from dialogue to action, and I hope that as we come to the end of this event, we're able to start moving towards practical actions. So that's what we have today for the goodwill messages. We're going to move on to a keynote address, which will be taken by the Honorable Minister of Petroleum Resources. Afterwards, we'll run through two presentations, a strategic presentation taken by McKinsey and Company, and then we'll run through a technical presentation by our partners, CarbonAi, and then we'll have a high-level panel session, and then we'll do question and answers and hopefully networking afterwards. So for the keynote address, I would like to welcome His Excellency, the Right Honorable Ekperikpe Ekpo, the Honorable Minister for State Petroleum Gas, who was appointed in August 2023. He currently serves as the President of the 2026 Ministerial Meeting of the Gas Exporting Countries Forum and the Chairman of the Committees of Ministers of the West African Gas Pipeline, underscoring Nigeria's growing influence in regional and global gas diplomacy. He's trained as an ecologist. His academic background has shaped his long-standing interest in environmental sustainability, cleaner energy systems, and the strategic role of gas in the national development. As the Minister of State's Petroleum Resources Gas, he has advanced the Decade of Gas policy initiative aimed at deepening domestic gas utilization, expanding clean cooking access for up to 5 million households by 2030, and strengthening production in line with the federal government's objective of reaching up to 12 BCF per day by 2030. His leadership reflects a strong commitment to energy access, industrial growth, regional cooperation, and a more sustainable energy future for Nigeria and Africa. If you don't mind, please let's welcome His Excellency, the Right Honorable Minister for Petroleum States. Honorable Eperebo Echo. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Authority Chief Executive, Rabi Omar, my brother who is here in person, thank you for coming. The MD GACN, the representative of the Canada High Commission, Nigerians that are here in Canada that have come out to identify with us, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'm happy to be here with you, and I bring you greetings from the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu. It is my pleasure to address this distinguished gathering at the Global Energy Show 2026 and to participate in this important Nigeria-Canada energy session. Let me begin by expressing my sincere appreciation to Gas Aggregator Company of Nigeria, headed by my brother, and for organizing this strategic engagement and for its continued effort in advancing gas commercialization and market development in Nigeria. I also wish to commend the government and people of Canada, the organizers of the Global Energy Show, industry leaders, investors, development partners, and all stakeholders gathered here today for the commitment and to fostering dialogue and collaboration towards the most secure, sustainable, and prosperous energy future. The theme of this session, Partnership for a Sustainable and Secure Energy Future, Advancing Nigerian-Canada Trade, Investment, and Gas Commercialization, is both timely and highly relevant. It reflects the growing recognition that the energy transition will not be achieved through isolation, but through partnership, innovation, investment, and shared commitment to sustainable development. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Nigeria stands at a pivotal moment in its energy journey. As Africa's largest economy and one of the continents with most endowed resources, we recognize that natural gas represents our most strategic resource for achieving energy security, industrialization, economic diversification, and inclusive growth. With approximately 215 trillion cubic feet, repetition is for emphasis because that is what will attract investors to our continent. 215 trillion cubic feet of proven natural gas reserves and significant exploration upside. Nigeria possesses one of the largest gas endowments globally. Our vision is clear: to transform these vast resources into tangible socio-economic benefits for our people while contributing meaningfully to global energy security. This vision is being pursued through the federal government Decade of Gas initiative, which seeks to position gas as the cornerstone of Nigeria's energy transition pathway. Through this initiative, we are driving investment across the entire gas value chain, from production and processing to transportation, distribution, utilization, and exports. Our objective extends beyond resource extraction. We are also building a gas-based industry economy capable of supporting manufacturing, power generation, petrochemicals, fertilizers, transportation, and numerous other sectors that stimulate economic growth and create sustainable jobs. Distinguished guests, the enactment of the Petroleum Industry Act, PIA 2021, has fundamentally transformed Nigeria's oil and gas sector. The Act provides a transparent, competitive, and investor-friendly framework designed to enhance regulatory certainty, improve governance, and create an enabling environment for investment. Complementing the PIA are a series of presidential executive orders aimed at reducing project timelines, improving fiscal competitiveness, streamlining approvals, and accelerating investment in the Nigerian energy sector. These reforms are already yielding positive results. We are witnessing renewed investor confidence, increased project activity, and growing interest from international partners seeking to participate in Nigeria's gas development opportunities. However, achieving our ambitions requires strong international collaboration. This is where partnerships such as this between Nigeria and Canada becomes particularly important. Canada possesses world-class expertise in energy technology, project development, carbon management, liquefied natural gas, infrastructure, financing, environmental stewardship, and innovation. Nigeria, on the other hand, offers abundant resources, a large and a growing market, strategic geographic positioning, and significant opportunities across the gas value chain. Together, our two countries can build mutually beneficial partnerships that unlock investment, facilitate technology transfer, strengthen institutional capacity, and accelerate the development of commercially viable gas projects. We welcome Canadian investors and companies to explore opportunities across Nigerian gas sector, including gas processing facilities, pipeline infrastructure, LNG development, and gas-to-power projects, compressed natural gas CNG, liquefied petroleum gas LPG, petrochemicals, and industrial gas utilization. We are equally interested in collaborating on emerging areas such as carbon capture and storage, methane emission reduction, energy efficiency, hydrogen development, and other innovative technologies that support lower carbon energy systems. Ladies and gentlemen, the global conversation on energy transition must recognize the unique realities of developing economies. For countries such as Nigeria, the challenge is not merely transitioning energy system. It is ensuring that energy remains accessible, affordable, reliable, and capable of supporting economic development. Natural gas provides the practical bridge between today's energy needs and tomorrow's low-carbon future. It enables us to expand energy access, reduce dependence on higher emission fuels, support industrialization, and improve living standards while advancing climate objectives. For Nigeria, therefore, gas is not merely a transition fuel, it is a destination fuel for development. As we continue to pursue sustainable growth, we remain committed to responsible resources development, environmental stewardship, emission reduction, and aligning with global climate goals. Distinguished participants, the opportunities before us are immense. The demand for reliable energy continues to grow. The need for strategic partnership has never been greater. The investment potential within Nigeria's gas sector remains significant and largely untapped. What is required now is collective action. Government must provide stable policies, which we have done, an enabling environment. Industries must bring capital. technology, and innovation. Financial institutions must support bankable projects. Development partners must facilitate collaboration and capacity building. Together, we can build an energy future that is secure, sustainable, inclusive, and beneficial to all. As I conclude, let me reaffirm the federal government of Nigeria's commitment to fostering partnership that drive investment, accelerate gas commercialization, strengthen energy security, and support sustainable economic development. I encourage all participants at this session to take advantage of the opportunities for dialogue, networking, and collaboration. Let us translate discussion into concrete investment, projects, and partnership that deliver lasting value for our countries and our people. On behalf of the federal government of Nigeria, led by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, I thank the organizers for these opportunities and wish you all a productive and a successful engagement. God bless the federal government of Canada. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Very, very insightful keynote address. We've heard it. The demand for reliable energy is there, and we need to continue to collaborate to be able to support industrialization while also advancing climate objectives. Thank you very much, Minister. So we were going to take us to the next item on the agenda, which would be a strategic presentation delivered by Mr. Oliver Onyekweli, a partner at McKinsey & Company. He's going to be speaking to us on the investment landscape in Nigeria's energy sector. This is telling us the overview of the market potentials and the investment opportunities across the entire gas value chain. So Mr. Oliver is a seasoned energy sector professional with more than 20 years experience in oil and gas industry. He has been advising companies around the world. He joined McKinsey in 2015, and he currently leads the firm's West African energy practice. Over the past decade, he has built deep expertise advising a wide range of international oil companies, as well as national oil companies and independent producers across Africa and the Middle East. Oliver works closely with clients to help them develop winning corporate strategies, achieve industry-leading operational excellence, and build high-performing teams and cultures. Prior to joining McKinsey, he was an investment banker focused on oil and gas sector in North America, and he is the leader of the West African energy practice in Lagos, Nigeria. Please let us welcome Mr. Oliver for his strategic presentation. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Is that thing working? Yeah. Okay. Maybe it's not working. Well, while we get that working, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And a big thank you to our esteemed guest. What a high-level delegation we have. The Honorable Minister, we're grateful for your presence today. The ACE, wonderful to see you here. And of course, MD, GACN, and our Director of Global Affairs Canada. On behalf of McKinsey, thank you very much for the invitation. And wow, it's not an easy, to follow up on HM's speech will not be easy, but what I'm going to try to do, is I'm going to try to put a little bit of some of the facts and the numbers on the table, because we have a story to tell, and I'll be honest with you, when you speak from the heart, you can't be wrong. You know, we were here 2 years ago, the year before, there's something changing in Nigeria. There's some excitement about Nigeria that's undeniable, and we see it everywhere, you know, and we're going to put some numbers to that, and hope by the end of this session, this will be sort of the the ingredients for conversations around how we can truly drive collaboration between investors here in Canada and what we have in Nigeria. And by the way, if you are an investor, a Canadian investor here, I think you'll find quite some interesting statistics. So I think there's a number of big shifts happening, tailwinds and supply and demand changes that are driving a different narrative for our nation, Nigeria. The first, and I'll talk about this in a minute, I want to share with you the trajectory of global demand growth. It's different than it was 2 years ago, and I'm going to put some numbers to that. I think we're all aware of the geopolitical conflicts around the world, and of course, we are hoping for a swift resolution of those things and those situations, but they have pointed to a need to diversify origination sources. I can tell you, if you go to Abuja today, there are country representatives from Asia looking for gas from Nigeria because they can't get it from Qatar. So there's differentiation and diversification that's happening. The MD-GACN spoke about the need for universal energy access, and that's driving investment in gas to power. It's also driving investment in clean cooking. And then finally, this policy focus on gas, HM spoke about it a little bit, right? Is there are now a number of very favorable incentives and interventions that have helped to give gas new wings in Nigeria. Look at this picture. This is a picture of gas demand globally. If I were to show you this picture, I was looking at it this morning and comparing to what I presented last year. Last year, it was almost like it was going up and then it was declining. But today, in our most central base case, this is McKinsey's base case central scenario, you have a steady, we don't even call it we don't talk about peak gas. It's a plateau up into the 2050s, growing on the back of a world that is increasingly demanding gas for power, right? We are electrifying. A good amount of that electrification will be renewable, but as we know, gas plays a very important firming role in global electricity systems. And there's this just unprecedented build-out globally, especially in the United States. Like data centers are just unreal, the amount of power they're consuming. And so there's a conversation around what role does gas play. And when we look at the greatest growth is actually in Africa. We see the greatest growth in demand for gas over the next 20 to 30 years. And in Africa, what we're going to see is 85% of the gas that is produced is going to be consumed by the power sector and the industry sector. And there was some conversation already about things like gas to petrochemicals, gas to power, and you can see those numbers reflected here. And then when we look and compare around the continent, it's useful to do that. We can actually start to see the scale of what is available to us. Not that we're competing, but I mean, look at Nigeria. 200. We put 211. It's 215. That's true. But some of us in our imagination, we wonder what that number would look like with the exploration factored in, and maybe it's triple that, something like that, right? Huge resources. But if we don't commercialize that gas, it's stranded. And that's what you see in the statistics on the far right. We got a 70-year reserve life based on, continental current production. And that gas only has value if we can extract it and put it to work. And that's, I think, a bit of the call to action today is around how do we really draw that commercialization out. And we see already Nigeria is just over there, becoming almost emerging as this hub for gas infrastructure, as a originator of gas regionally. And we already have the West Africa gas pipeline that connects our resources across over to Ghana. And there are a number of projects on the docket, by the way, which you can see here, the Atlantic gas pipeline that will go all the way across the Trans-Sahara. This gas is destined for markets in Europe and elsewhere. Not to speak of FLNG, which we have several projects that are now ongoing to take gas further afield. This is a very important picture. This is what by the way, this is not a mathematical forecast. We went project by project. We asked every single project sponsor in our country, tell us about your gas-based project. How much gas do you need? When is it coming online? This work is part of the decade of gas work that the Honorable Minister spoke about. And we've actually been able to visualize where the demand is going to emerge, whether it's gas to power, which is the light-colored one, the light blue one, and then the dark ones are gas-based industries. And it's quite interesting. You look and you see this axis here, just over here. That's AKK. That's the AKK. We're blessed AKK mainline completion has now happened, and the gas demand is emerging in anticipation of that gas pipeline. This is one of those stories around build it and they will come, and it's already happening. We talked about the gas demand gap, and what we see is that under the most optimistic scenarios, 12 billion cubic feet per day of gas, that's if we bring forward all of our, FID projects, gas supply projects that have a field development plan, a sanction plan, we would hit 12 BCF per day by 2030. But then if you just look at the demand alone is just staggering. We think it's at least 23 billion cubic feet per day. There's a gap of 10 BCF per day of gas. And guess what? People talk all the time about export gas. Most of that 22.6 is actually domestic. We are hungry for gas in our nation. We have gas-based industries that are looking for gas. We've got commercial hubs that are looking for gas. That plays a major role in that figure. And so some of the drivers that we've seen, I spoke a little bit about the global trends, the global shift in narrative around gas has given new life and new investment. When we look at on the infrastructure, we for a long time spoke about challenges that we have had with infrastructure, but we are celebrating in Nigeria some important milestones. I talked about the AKK mainline completion. There's still work to be done on AKK, but for years we've been waiting, and now the mainline is there. We've crossed the River Niger on the OB3. This was an engineering feat that we did, and we've now achieved it, and that is opening up new corridors for gas. And then thirdly, the enactments of President Tinubu that we've seen, we've had a number of executive orders, the enshrinement of the PIA, also programs around gas funding, the MDGI, that's the Midstream Downstream Gas Infrastructure Fund, which we hope will be an anchor investor in some of these projects. And then CNG and the Nigerian Gas Flare Commercialization Program are all active programs that are now drawing gas that used to be flared into being monetized at home in our nation. It's very exciting. And what does that produce for us? 4 FIDs in the last 30 months. We can't just speak enough about this. We've got, Bonga North taken FID, Ubeta, Iseni, has taken HI. These are just, these are projects that we have in Nigeria. They're going to drive an enormous amount of gas. By the way, you feel it, right? Because any additional gas that goes into our domestic market is we see the difference it makes on power immediately. So when you are driving gas into the domestic market, you are immediately impacting the lives of Nigerians. We're very proud of that. 16% increase in domestic sales, 4% growth in export gas. And through the Decade of Gas program, 70 projects downstream, these are gas utilization projects, are ready to go and will need investment. So this is an investment opportunity. There are still a few things that we need to do, like we have to be just, mindful of those things. I think our gas sector is a sector that is in transition, and, we're working our way toward a cost-reflective environment. And then, the dream would be at some point, because it takes time, you have to build depth in the gas market, price realization and price discovery, but then we can go to a market-based gas environment, willing buyer, willing seller. The infrastructure is already in the process of being built out. And then I think another speaker mentioned the criticality of bankable projects. We're getting there. There was a lot of work done, by the way, by our government, our president, to remove some of the overhang. We had enormous arrears in our sector. That is money that was owed to gas producers for gas sold into the power sector. The president has approved a program to extinguish those arrears, but we need to be vigilant that those don't build up again so that investment can happen. but these are the types of things that are now in progress. Just to put a picture, sometimes a picture is a useful tool. And we talked about what are these projects? What are these commercialization opportunities? And what are people doing? This is just a snapshot, by the way, of what we see already happening in Nigeria. We've got people using gas, we call them captive industrial users, who have connected their industrial operation to gas upstream, so they have continual flow of gas feedstock into their production process. Or if you're an upstream player, you're now using gas to power at the wellhead and re-injecting for pressure lift so that we get all the reserves and maximize our production. There's interesting things happening around, we call them gas hubs, or even you can think of them as industrial parks. Walter Smith is an example of an indigenous company in Nigeria that is looking at how do we create from molecules into electrons? Can we valorize the entire value chain, our upstream gas, into an industrial park where, by the way, we have power, we have petrochemical production, and even data centers. This is the new way of thinking, and this is what we see happening already. There's an entire set of business models around gas distribution and some very successful companies that are doing that. If we're talking about city-gate distribution, we've got people like Excella. Excella has just completed a transaction, a private equity transaction, which I think shows the faith and the excitement that investors are putting in that model of gas distribution. And there are folks here who are doing virtual pipelines. So these are your CNG players, your domestic LNG trucking, who have found a great business serving customers that are a bit remote from the pipeline. And these are opportunities for investors as well. Not to speak of LPG, I mean, LPG is also, we put the picture. There's many places to invest in LPG, from the storage and distribution to the cylinder manufacturing to the retail. We have some folks here in the room who are in that space and they've seen the opportunity. So what do the numbers look like in conclusion, right? So I think upstream, we have at least 5 BCF per day of projects, and we're grateful to the likes of Seplat and others, Renaissance, of course, our domestic champions who are excited about the gas NAG and ag projects. We think the midstream investment size in the ticket is at least $20 billion. That's for trunk line infrastructure. That is for processing. We need at least 8 billion cubic feet per day of processing and distribution. And then finally, on the downstream side, through the decade of gas, there's additional 20 billion in projects that are available and are on the books to take off. And so I'm going to leave it there. I hope that some of these numbers have inspired the kinds of conversations that we're going to have today and through the rest of the afternoon about the type of opportunities we have in Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Oliver, for that insightful presentation. A lot of numbers to deal with, but I'm sure everyone is excited about that, and we'll be taking questions afterwards. So please, if you have questions for Mr. Oliver and the next presenter, please do well to take it down, and we'll take it at the later session. Now, moving on, we'll be moving to a more technical presentation taken by our partner CarbonAi, Ivan Champagne, who is the Chief Carbon Officer at CarbonAi. He's going to be speaking to us on methane transparency, MRV, and carbon market readiness. We know this is very interesting and very, should I say, right in time. In Nigeria, we're speaking about MRV, we're speaking about methane abatement. So I believe this presentation will go a long way for everyone in the room. So Ivan Champagne is the co-founder and chief carbon officer at CarbonAi. He has an extensive background in the financing, development, and execution of large-scale emission reduction projects, and with direct involvement in over 70 unique emission projects across 17 unique project types that have cumulatively delivered over 16 million tons CO2 emissions of reduction across the world. Wow. Ivan holds a BA in Political Science from the Yale University and an MBA from the Kellogg School of Management, Northwestern, and the Schoolage School of Business, York. With a round of applause, please let's invite Ivan Champagne for his strategic technical presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Minister Ekbo, Authority Chief Executive Umar, our dear friends at GACN, and distinguished guests and attendees, thank you so much for the opportunity to chat today. There have been a number of things that our speakers who've come before me have talked about that I think really resonate for me. But I think the thing that I think I hold on to the most is our recent comments from our friend from McKinsey, which is something is changing. And I think it's an excellent observation that is really relevant to what we see working very closely in Nigeria and having done so for the last few years. And I'll give a few examples of that as I go through. Just first, before I dive into some of the observations and key things that we see as being very relevant to the conversation around partnership between Nigeria and Canada, a bit of background on CarbonAi. We've been in business now as a company for about 5 years. And when we set up the company, one of our first decisions that we had to make was where we would invest our time and energy and build relationships. And at the top of the list for us 5 years ago was Nigeria. And there were a number of reasons that went into that decision. But we can look back now, given the partnerships, the projects, the initiatives, the regulators that we've had the opportunity to work with, and we realized that that was the right decision. And I'll be able to share, I think, some of the great things that are happening in country. We come or speak from a position of understanding how to get things done. It really is kind of an Alberta trait. There's a saying here of get or done. I think that's something we take great pride in helping get projects built and done. What we do is help, as a company, be a catalyst for projects specifically around flare gas mitigation. This is an area that we've had direct experience with in Nigeria. But the other side of our business is on technology. And we've developed a suite of tools that include Field Proof and View, 3 different components that help deliver and ensure the integrity of outcomes having to do with environmental and physical commodities. Some of the use cases where our projects have or tools have been used include flare gas conservation, oil and gas well abandonment, methane intensity certification, clean cooking, which is a huge opportunity in Nigeria, and we're excited to be working with various players there, landfill gas capture, another application that sees the use and valuation or valorization of methane, and distributed solar, which may not seem to be connected to the conventional energy sector. But as we've just heard, the energy demands in Nigeria are so great that even though natural gas is a very important part of the supply mix and energy mix, you really need a huge build out of renewable energy to take the pressure off of natural gas as an energy source. And it's obviously a very impactful and economically feasible approach. So I wanted to dig into 4 things. And again, this point of something is changing. One of the things that's most frustrating as a speaker sometimes is if you're coming to events and you're presenting the same thing year after year and nothing changes. But it's really exciting because I think some of the key points and lessons that we've observed internationally, we are really seeing changes and we are seeing Nigeria lead, which is really, really exciting. One of the opportunities we see is really around carbon pragmatism. What does this mean? The conversation around climate change and the intersection with conventional energy, I would argue for the past 5 years has been dominated by certain themes that are maybe not connected to energy pragmatism. There has been an overweighted emphasis on things like hydrogen, things like direct air capture, technologies that will have a role to play, but have maybe missed the mark in terms of direct, actionable actions and projects and initiatives that can be done today, commercially today, and financially done today. And I think this creates an opportunity. Nigeria is seeing that, where a number of players are coming to Nigeria and saying, hey, we want your natural gas. We want your oil. We want your exports. And so this puts a renewed emphasis on natural gas. And for natural gas to play that important role and opportunity that it has in the supply mix, not only in a place like Nigeria, but internationally, for natural gas to play that role, the big linchpin is, can you deal with the emissions of vented methane in that upstream, downstream, and midstream production? If you can reduce those emissions, then yes, natural gas can play an exceptional role. And so what we're seeing in terms of pragmatism making a comeback is renewed emphasis on interest, not only from voluntary buyers in international carbon markets that are expressing interest in methane mitigation projects, but we see a de-emphasis on maybe things that are maybe going to play a role 10, 15 years from now, and focusing on the here and now, which we think is a great development. The second opportunity we see, and we're seeing it being actioned right now in Nigeria. An analogy that's often been used is this, I guess a metaphor taken from the telecom sector, where here in North America, when we built out our telecommunications sector, we did it through wires, right? We had to build phone, landline infrastructure to support that. And what we see across Africa is the ability to go straight to wireless, or what my co-founder at CarbonAi, Ryan Arsenault, talks about is straight to space-based telecommunications. And so we are seeing this, we are seeing the leapfrogging, the adoption of new technologies, new approaches that don't rely a very costly build out of legacy infrastructure, but can move to digital infrastructure to do this much more quickly and at lower costs. And we are seeing that today in Nigeria. The challenge I would emphasize, and this is something that Canada has unfortunately learned the hard way, is, and again, this isn't just in carbon markets, this is in conventional energy markets, is the need for speed. When regulatory processes take too long, that is a disincentive to capital and investment. Things like project approvals. If those things are delayed, capital finds a different place. Capital will flow to the opportunities where it can be deployed faster, right? And so this is something that we're seeing movement on in Nigeria in real time. The NCCC, the Nigerian Council on Climate Change, which is the focal point for all of Nigeria's initiatives around climate change, they are becoming one of the fastest approvers in the world, providing letters of authorization for project developers that are looking to export emission reductions outside of Nigeria. Again, this is how you attract capital, by moving faster and smarter. The last challenge I'd like to highlight is reputational risk versus a reputational premium. In carbon markets, integrity is an exceptional component. This also ties to physical commodities as well. And what we're seeing is there have been a few examples over the past few years across Africa, and I've used Zimbabwe as an example, where projects were developed that were approved that maybe did not have integrity, and there was no way to track that those emission reductions associated with those projects were real. People came and looked. They looked under the covers to see what was going on. They discovered that there were problems. And the fact of not having integrity in those projects means that Zimbabwe, unfortunately, had its reputation damaged. And it's made projects that originate from Zimbabwe less attractive to investors and to buyers. And this is something that lasts. But there's also the opposite, which is if you become a jurisdiction that is seen to generate the highest quality emission reductions or commodities, then you will attract capital. And you may also be able to receive a price premium because you are delivering a premium product, something that is seen to have great value. And this is something that we'd like to encourage you over the next coming months to keep an eye on Nigeria from what we are seeing, Nigeria is going to be setting, I think, some of the greatest precedents across the world on how you ensure integrity of emission reduction claims. And so this is, again, something that is very exciting for us to see. I'll pause there and look forward to the panel discussion shortly. Thank you.
Thank you once again, Ivan. That was interesting, taking note of the opportunities that we see in Nigeria, especially regarding moving towards more climate action, methane reduction and all of that. So Nigeria is ready. Like you said, we've improved in terms of our needs for speed, and we just want to encourage everyone to please keep moving towards that, advancing the climate action as we move ahead. So we've come to the end of the strategic presentation bit. We're now moving on to our panel discussions, where we're going to be speaking on Nigeria-Canada energy partnerships, how we're going to unlock trade investments, flare gas commercialization through policy, technology, and innovation. I think we have a couple of panelists joining us today. I think we have one person joining online, but we'll just move on, and I really hope he's able to join in. So I will just quickly introduce the panelists, and please would welcome them to their seats. First on the list of our panelists today, we have, oh, he just spoke, the Chief Carbon Officer of CarbonAi, Mr. Ivan Champagne. It's a round of applause, please. Next on the list we have is the Special Advisor to the President on Climate Technology. It's good to have him on the panels, especially for speaking on climate technology today. No other person but Mr. Olamide Fabuji. He'll be joining us online. He's the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Climate Technology and Operations. With over 15 years of professional experience. He has built a strong track record in government advisory, climate policy, sustainable development, and economic planning. Prior to his role, he served as a special assistant to the President on economic matters, where he supported the coordination of multi-sectorial policy implementation through the National Economic Council. He contributed to the development of several key national policy frameworks, including the Medium-Term National Development Plan, the National Energy Strategy, and the Revenue Reform Initiative. Mr. Fabuji contributions also led to the establishment of the National Council on Climate Change, a central institution driving Nigerians' climate governance and implementation of the climate commitments. With a round of applause, let's welcome Mr. Olamide Fabuji online. Mr. Olamide, please can you confirm if you can hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Welcome. It's good to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next panelist would be, of course, my MD of GACN, Mr. Chijioke Uzoho. Please, a round of applause for him. We'll also be having our initial strategic presenter, Mr. Oliver Onyekweli, joining the panelists. Please, a round of applause for him. And to take us through this session, we're going to be having my colleague moderating the panel. His name is Mr. Kufre Obon Otu Meadow. He's a seasoned corporate counsel, sustainability strategies, and energy transition professional with extensive experience driving commercial, regulatory, and strategic initiatives across the energy value chain. He currently leads the commercial law and strategy team at GACN, where he supports the development and implementation of national gas commercialization strategies, energy transition initiatives, and sustainable growth programs. He has played a key role in structuring and negotiating complex gas commercialization and supply agreements that support Nigeria's industrialization agenda and deepens the domestic gas utilization. He's an industry thought leader and anchors strategic engagement on sustainability, ESG integration, and sustainable finance, working with public and private sector stakeholders to develop practical pathways for balancing economic growth, energy access, and climate objectives. Please a round of applause as I welcome Mr. Kufre Meadow.
Thank you for that lovely introduction, and good afternoon, everyone here. So like my colleague Ekene said, my name is Kufre Obong Utumedo. So I'll be taking us on our panel session for today, focusing mostly on Nigeria-Canada bilateral trade and investment opportunities. So just to jump straight in, I'll start off asking a general question to our panelists here and of course online. Global systems now are evolving around energy security, industrial competitiveness, and decarbonization. So where do you see the strongest opportunities, strategic opportunities for Nigeria-Canada trade and investment over the next decade? And I want to start with Mr. Oliver.
All right, good afternoon, thank you. Yeah, I think as I mentioned in my initial talk, I think there's never been a more tangible time for Canada and Nigeria to collaborate. And I think if I'm just speaking from just what I see on the ground back home, there's a real opportunity for financing. This town, Calgary, you know, we have a history and a legacy, a proud legacy. We funded an incredible, you know, if you look back into the early 2000s, like the independent, the small scale and mid-scale oil and gas landscape, the engine of funding was all through Calgary. And we actually did a lot of the listings for the internationals, including internationals in Nigeria. And now that we are in an environment where a lot of the policies and the stability has come back, I think there's actually a lot of opportunity for Canadian capital providers to play a real role in funding upstream players in Nigeria. So that is something, by the way, we're starting to see, you know, with investors I speak to. The Europeans are coming back. The Americans are looking for opportunities. Here in Canada, we need to be looking at those too, and not losing our place as a, you know, as a funding source for high quality projects and high quality producers. So that's one. I think the second thing I would say is there's a real role for knowledge transfer. And the reason I say that is because, you know, some of the things that we've coped with in Nigeria for a long time, we used to talk about our gas like it was stranded gas. We used to say that, it's stranded. It was stranded by the economics, the fiscals, stranded by the infrastructure. But it wasn't that different here for a long time. Like if you look at, like, for example, the resource plays, Northeast BC, Montney, Duvernay gas, I mean, those plays took a serious discount, right, at the ACO hub. We took a serious price discount. And now what we're starting to see is integrated development, right? LNG on the coastal BC, FLNG now, to get those gas to destination markets, Asia. And I think those types of things are the things we're thinking about in Nigeria. We're being flexible. So we have our NLNG, but we're also looking at FLNG. And so there's really, I think, an opportunity to draw on learnings that we've gone through in Canada here, back in Nigeria as well. And I think the third thing, I'll just say one more thing, is that, you know, we need professionals in Nigeria, good energy professionals, hydrocarbon professionals. There's a deep market here in Calgary, especially in Calgary, folks that understand how to do difficult gas projects. We have abundant projects in Nigeria that would benefit from that two-way transfer of talent. So that'd be what I'd say as far as like clear opportunities for Canada and Nigeria collaboration. And by the way, I hope to see more Canadian investors come to Nigeria. I don't see enough of that. I see Americans, I see Asian investors, I see Europeans. We don't see enough Canadians. And there's no reason for that. There's actually no reason for that. We have all of the expertise and the links are there.
All right, thank you so much, Oliver. I think you're echoing what our regional lead for Global Affairs Canada had said about making sure we're bridging that gap. And thank you for identifying those opportunities too. So now I want to hear from Olamide, who is online, where from a government perspective, where you see those strategic opportunities for Nigeria and Canada trade. I think that will form a good baseline to anchor the discussions we're going to have today. So Olamide, please go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much, and it's great to be here. It's unfortunate I couldn't be there in person, but I'm really happy for the opportunity. I think the starting point is just to underline this by saying that Nigeria is in a very unique position because we're, one of the largest economies in Africa, the first or the second, depending on who you ask. But now we are no longer asking how we survive climate change. It's about how we build industries that solve climate challenges while creating prosperity. And when you look at the landscape, I think Oliver has really set the tone with his presentation, with just the quantum of gas that is abundantly available in Nigeria for prospecting, both to drive industry and also for domestic use. It's staggering. I think it's appropriate to speak in superlatives at this time that Nigeria will definitely provide a unique opportunity for us to look at investment in infrastructure, gas infrastructure across the country, because we are not only decarbonizing as we are producing gas, but looking at the future of energy in Nigeria, you can also see that there's a clear opportunity there for minerals and critical minerals that will actually drive the energy transition. Of course, we position gas as our transition fuel, which will take the pressure off, the demand, which is also globally present and affecting Nigeria as well. I think to actually preface my intervention, it's very important to also note that Nigeria has put in place the governance and implementation frameworks that actually guide investment in energy in Nigeria going forward. We've already established a National Council on Climate Change and also the energy transition plan that we have squarely describes how Nigeria, the pathway for Nigeria to achieve net zero by 2060. For investors in Nigeria, we have also to recognize that we are, there's a need to measure because we still require monitoring and reporting and verification infrastructure in Nigeria. So these are very, very clear opportunities for us going forward. We not only see climate technology we also see it as an emission reduction strategy, and alongside an industrialization strategy, an energy security strategy, and a job security strategy, more importantly. So I think with that, I would just like to set the tone and then pass it on to the next panelist. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Olamide. And I want to touch on some of the last things that you had mentioned, especially with regard to the validity of the data, the monitoring and evaluation. And I will hand over to Yvonne just to hear your thoughts. So, of course, transparency and accountability is quite important, and they're increasingly shaping these investment decisions and investment flow and competitiveness. So how, from your perspective, I know you had spoken a bit on that, but how do you see Nigeria positioning itself to really attract these sort of investments that, of course, Mr. Oliver had also alluded to?
Yeah, it's a really good question. We have the benefit of working internationally across, several different continents with different countries, and there's different approaches being taken. But one of the things we've been most impressed with in Nigeria is an understanding of new approaches and new things that can be done and unlocked through technology. And so how technology can be a real enabler of trust and integrity. And so if we look at what is best in class right now, we see Nigeria as rolling out over the next few months something that is very world leading in terms of a framework around trust and integrity. And we think that if we look at what's happening around physical commodities today, given the crisis in the Middle East and the ongoing war in Ukraine, that's created energy scarcity. And when energy is scarce, people worry less about provenance. Where does this oil come from? You see that with the dark tanker fleets of Russian oil. People don't care. They just need the molecules. And that's the time we're in right now. But that time will pass. Those conflicts will get resolved at some point. And then we're likely going to get back to a stage of energy potentially oversupply in some cases in international markets. And when that happens, if you look at what has happened in Europe, Europe is setting in place through its CBAM, so its Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, its methane regulation. They're sending a very strong signal that greenhouse gas intensity will matter. And so when scarcity is off the table and they have choice again, they will be looking to countries and partners that not only can deliver physical supply, but can do so in an environmentally competitive way. And I think that's where Nigeria has a huge opportunity, and one that I think can really benefit from partnership with Canada. If we look at, for example, methane performance in the oil and gas sector, Alberta is probably best in class globally. We've reduced our methane emissions in the oil and gas sector by 50%. And that's been done, I think, in a period of about 8 years. So it's done fairly quickly. And technologies, approaches, regulatory and market-based hybrid systems that really drive the private sector to deliver those emission reductions, Alberta's done that. And so Nigeria stands at a place where it can really benefit from learning from what has been done here in Alberta and in Canada, and really take advantage of that and implement it. And again, to position itself for when we're through this period of scarcity, how does Nigeria look coming out the other side? And I think we're very encouraged with what we're seeing, that Nigeria has the potential to really emerge as a partner of choice for energy.
Thank you so much, Ivan. And I really do like what you said about the period of scarcity and how we need to position ourselves properly, especially within the context of Nigerian and Canadian trade. And that flows really nicely into what I want the MD GACN to speak on about, because we're moving from we've heard from what's actually on ground. We've heard from your perspective, some case studies. We've heard from the policy perspective from the government. And so now I want us to bridge that gap. So moving from that policy into actual project delivery. So for Mr. CJ, how can institutions like GACN, because of course one recurring concern is how to make these projects bankable. So how can institutions, or what role can we play, institutions like GACN, to improve this coordination between the government, between the suppliers, developers, and financiers?
Okay. Okay. So thanks for that, Kufre. I think that your question to me crystallizes the views that everyone here has put on the table. Kudos to Oliver. I think in most of the conversation, he's done most of my job. However, I think that going from narratives to actual practical implementation isn't, for us, from where we sit, a market credibility issue. Because from the numbers Oliver has shown, the opportunity is there, the prospects are there. For us, it's more of structural alignment. And in midwifing most of these projects, I will say that GACN today has midwifed almost all the projects Oliver showed, including our collaboration with CarbonAi on the carbon area. However, looking at that first, just looking at where you find those structural gaps will be first in terms of information asymmetry. We're seeing investors from Canada, investors coming to Nigeria without a real definition of what their value expectation is from the market or even from the Nigerian government. There's no definition around what sort of guarantees that the market can give to them. And we've also seen the misalignment on the Nigerian counterpart, where whether it's government or market, do not understand really what ticks the box for the investors with regards to FID. So providing that single platform for truth that enables practical crystallization of concept into actual project, it's one. The second is risk allocation. We've also seen risk metrics that are heavy around normal conceptual thought process around risk, not taking into consideration that Nigeria is a peculiar market, and with that peculiarism comes a lot of creativeness in terms of risk allocation. We have found that in being able to put some creativeness around the risk allocation, we are then able to funnel through a number of practical projects, and we've demonstrated that across the major sectors. We pioneered and facilitated gas-based industries with regards to like urea, when the global notion was that it wasn't bankable. Today, we have about 6 metric tons per annum capacity of urea, whether it's Dangote in Durama, in country, and we are part of the initiation, conception to actual implementation. We've also done that in the domestic LNG conversations. Before now, it was thought not to be bankable. Today, we have a full-fledged mini LNG solution, and Oliver showed that up, Greenville. At the back of Greenville, we have plus or minus about 98 million scope of additional small-scale mini LNG solutions coming up. We have some of the promoters here in the room pushing that through. We've also been able to pioneer, even in the GBI market, methanol, where we had tested relocation of facilities from China. And those facilities are currently production today, right? And producing methanol in country. We've also done same with captive power solutions, right? Where even in the midst of the challenges within the gas to power solution, we've been able to pioneer and facilitate uniquely based captive power solutions, which are today operating and purely bankable. So for us, we think that the risk allocation and being creative about the nuances within the particular market, in this case, Nigeria, is very important. The next will be, for us, will be a last mile execution. So over time, we've seen that even projects that have gotten FID, which are bankable on paper, with all signed agreement, have not gotten to fruition in terms of actual operationalization. The idea being that we have seen that there is no follow-through in terms of process. The process in Nigeria is not typical of the process you have in a developed clime. You need people who sit on it on a daily basis, you know, as project drivers to ensure that the concept is transformed into actual practical operationalized solution. And that's what we've done with some of the projects we've mentioned to you, whether it's the FGN Mobility CNG initiative, gas to power solution. It's having an institution, a DEX, that keeps a lock on it and follows through. That's also what the Decade of Gas is doing today. Lastly is that we have seen that it is not enough to have convening powers. We've seen organizations that have convening powers, but they don't have enough to turn that into an execution momentum, right? And so the idea is transforming panel sessions like this into practical solutions, right? And for us as GACN, and this is particular to us as GACN, we're a licensed domestic aggregator. This falls core to our mandate. Our job is to midwife practical solutions like this, from conceptual stage to practical solutions, ensuring that we are debottlenecking your risk. We're providing advice based on peculiar and historic knowledge of similar transactions. We also bring into the table clear expectations across value chain so that from onset, everyone is in line and understand what the delivery is. And we also ensure that delivery is a collective action, right? So thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. CJ. So you've spoken extensively about risk and delivery. And just so we round off for today, I want us to take a look at the future. So in the next 3-4 years, if we're sitting in this same room, this same group of people or otherwise, discussing Nigeria-Canadian partnerships, can you give me one example of what it will look like? I think maybe Oliver, you can start with us.
What a Canadian-Nigerian partnership would look like?
Yes, if we're sitting in this room in 3 years.
Well, I mean, I kind of described a couple of them, right? I would love to see emerging pools of institutional Canadian capital starting to back projects in Nigeria. I don't think it's far-fetched. I don't think it's far-fetched. And I say that only because if we were rewinding the clock 2 to 3 years ago, it was just unimaginable. It was unimaginable because we have in Nigeria what we call above ground risk, right? We've never had any question about the subsurface that we have. We are truly blessed, but it's always been above ground risk. And I think with the shifts that the minister talked about today, and I think even the authority chief executive talked about, and from the discussions, because I sit with investors now across the world talking about Nigeria, and there is a palpable excitement. They see it. They see now that, on TNP, Trans-Niger Pipeline, we're now 90%. We used to be almost in force majeure, that such to the point where now you send 100 barrels at the wellhead, you receive 30 at the terminal. That's changed. So investors are wanting to see monetization. They want to see ability to lock in every molecule along the value chain. And so for the first time, I'm actually seeing really like American funders, American private equity coming back, saying, hey, what are we backing? What's out there? What can we look at? So I would love to see, pools of Canadian capital coming back, and not just pools of Canadian capital, operators that understand how to do, for example, offshore. We have a deep funnel of offshore. I was sitting in a room, I won't name the company, but it was one of the larger oil and gas companies in the world. They said there's nowhere on earth with a deeper and more expansive funnel of FID-ready projects, 2P, proven probable, that we have in Nigeria. We have Guyana opportunities in our country. They just say for the government, the way that it's put, it's like clear the landing field, allow industry to come in. And so I would love to see an emergence of some of our battle-hardened, deep brownfield excellence Canadian operators come in and play in the space, because guess what? We're starting to see that attention from the Americans. We're starting to see that attention from the Europeans. So I don't want us to miss that here in Canada. We have a lot of that expertise. And by the way, a lot of our people, a lot of our Nigerians have come in, they've done secondment here, in the basin here. And so this linkage is back and forth. So I think if I were sitting here 3 to 4 years from now, I want to be looking at that list of who are the pools of capital. By the way, which of these companies have listed on a TSX venture? Again, we can do it again. We used to do it. And the sector is back. So those are the markers that I want to see. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much for those markers. So let's hear from a government perspective. So Mr. Olamide, in 3-4 years, how would you see Nigeria-Canadian partnership manifest?
Okay, thank you very much. That's a very good question. I think, we cast forward a bit. I like that my co-panelists did mention the company.
I think we're having a breakage in the network from Olamide. Okay, while we're waiting for you to get your network back up, perhaps we could mute you a bit and we'll hear from Yvonne, your perspective.
Yeah, I would maybe say there's a couple things that are really interesting. I talked about a return to pragmatism, specifically around climate pragmatism. And if I think of one of the biggest opportunities globally for emission reductions, right? How you put direct climate action at play, the biggest opportunity is in the oil and gas sector. It is the biggest decarbonization opportunity globally. And you know, Canada has had some policies over the last 10 years that just haven't candidly made a lot of sense from an actual climate change math perspective. And I think we're seeing a change in that. That has translated, or it's meant things like EDC, which is Export Development Canada, which has played a huge role internationally in funding infrastructure. So the Government of Canada being an important funding partner. You know, they've had a mandate for several years now where they can't invest in the oil and gas sector. We're hoping that with this change to pragmatism, that it may mean that EDC may have the ability to invest in oil and gas infrastructure if it's linked to decarbonization or emission reductions. And the great thing there is Canada has some of the best technology around lowering emissions in the oil and gas sector, full stop. The second piece I'd see is if we look at our energy infrastructure, Nigeria and Canada, we're almost like a mirror image. Nigeria has great tidewater and export infrastructure, right? Canada, we just have our first train of LNG that just launched last year. Nigeria's on train 8? Train 7. But in the upstream and midstream, and even the distribution network for gas, Alberta's probably best in class. We have more pipe in the ground probably than anywhere else per capita in the world. We know how to do that really well, and that's a huge opportunity for GACN, right? Getting that gas that's currently stranded to those customers that want that gas in country. I think there's a huge opportunity there. And again, if you're helping deliver gas that's currently stranded to a customer that will use that gas, that is a huge emission reduction opportunity, right? So I think there's huge opportunity there for partnership. And we're really excited. We've been spending a lot of time in Ottawa bugging Megan's colleagues at Global Affairs Canada about that opportunity. We're hearing people nod heads now and listen to us a little bit, so we're excited about that. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ivan. And so finally, I want us to hear from Mr. CJ.
In terms of just trying to put together this perspective from Oliver and also yours. So one is there is a huge play today in the Nigerian market. And the good thing is that we're at a point where we have already proven the concept. So the pilots are done. We're at the point where what we need is scale, and that's what the demand that Oliver showed is. A 22 BCF of gas supply demand. And this shows across board, whether it's upstream, midstream, or downstream. And resource base has never been our issue. And as of today, we're unlocking midstream. Part of the presentation Oliver made was the completion of the AKK. The AKK is a 614 kilometer pipeline. It's 40 inch. That's about 2 BCF of gas. But what nobody is also saying is that the AKK just doesn't end there. There's a 130 kilometer pipeline called OB3. It's a 42 inch pipeline. That's massive. That's driving gas from the eastern region to the western region and also to the northern region. But building up this infrastructure is real estate if there's no gas commercialization to it. So there's a massive opportunity in terms of gas distribution across these border states. To date, we've signed MOU and collaboration agreement with subnationals across the pipeline. We've also turned them around into individual state gas master plan documents. So it clearly shows you the strategy in terms of process delivery for gas commercialization across those trends. And I hear you speak to the enormous finance opportunity, especially long-term infrastructure finance from Canada. So for me, 3 years from now, I don't want to be sitting here, right? I would like the first mover investors to be sitting here and giving us a perspective of their experience in Nigeria. So that would help catalyze incremental investment in country. There is about plus or minus 2,000 to 3,000 distribution pipeline opportunities in country. And within that corridor alone, you have about 100 million people in terms of population. So you're not just talking about export, you're talking about domestic consumption, right? And we have tested most of these prototypes in terms of their being viable, whether it's export or domestic base. And we're also able to provide the support in terms of effective implementation to build that out. So, so in a large scale, I see a largely monetized market 3 to 5 years from now. I see a gas-driven market. I see us realizing the Decade of Gas initiative so far. I see us having much more active players than players just having conversations. Yeah. And also, as a takeaway from this engagement, we want to see more positive and practical engagement from the Canadian community into investing and participating into the build out of the domestic and the global general gas market in Nigeria.
Thank you so much, Mr. CJ. And I'm really pleased with a lot of what you had said, and particularly who you want to see sitting here in the next 3 years, because that really encapsulates different levels of success that we're trying to, where we're aspiring to, and we've spoken to extensively. Because like Olamide has said, and the Honorable Minister also mentioned, the policies are there. What we need, and which is why I asked that question. We've heard from Mr. Oliver, we've heard from Ivan about making sure that where there's knowledge exchange, there's capacity exchange in there, there's finance that's coming in, and of course, making sure that all of us are in the right frame of mind to really push these beyond, and getting the support, of course, from like Global Affairs Canada to make sure that it goes both ways, to ensure that it's just not one side pushing in, and you have the support of all the necessary stakeholders. So that really concludes our panel for today, and I want to say thank you so much for your time, for your efforts. Some of you have presented as well, and I thank you for the dual role you've played. And thank you to our listeners, to our attendees for also paying attention. And we hope there are some takeaways from this session for your further use. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much, the moderator, Mr. Kufre Meadow, and the distinguished panelists for that interesting session. I'm really happy with the last bit of it, which was where do we see this collaboration between Nigeria and Canada going in the next 3 to 4 years. I'm really excited about it, and I really hope that we can see, like Mr. Oliver said, the emerging pools of Canadian capital-backed projects in Nigeria, and also, like my MD has said, the investors sitting here and telling us the story of their experience in Nigeria. We really hope to see that in the nearest future. Thank you very much once again. We'd just like to take a few minutes. I know we have spent a bit of our time, just a few minutes to see if we have any questions around the room. Maybe for the panelists or any speaker, if you can just please maybe indicate so we can take your question. Please make it as brief as possible. I don't know if we have any questions in the room. Okay, I think we have one question at the back. Thank you, Ivan. Please just introduce yourself and your company. Thank you.
I'm Simi Adiri Esene, and I'm with Daniela. We're into mining and also work with some of the oil commodities. What we majorly do is offtake agreements, buying crude, AGO, and jet fuel. We also have a technology solution. My main question is on the investment part. So for the Canadian investors, is there a bidding process to the investment that our gentleman discussed about with the GACN? What the process is like?
So thank you. There are stratas of opportunities, but I would say the first way to start isn't, there's no bidding process. You can start the conversation today. And depending on where your interest lies, we'll then start to build out the narrative or the process for that. If you're looking to do project development, especially gas-driven, it will be funneling through a specific business opportunity, and then seeing what's part of that value chain you're interested in, and we can start to build out the process for your engagement. But in terms of trade, product trade, yes, there will be bidding opportunities, but that will be peculiar to the actual producer or actor in that regard. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chijioke, and thank you for the question. Do we have any other question? There's no mic here. Okay. I think this will be our final question, just because of time. I know everyone has had a busy day.
No worries.
Please go ahead.
Easy to answer question. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Terry from AYM Shafa. So there's a good partnership between CarbonAi and GACN. And I heard a lot about emission reduction, heard a lot about the integrity of documentation or verification of the projects that are being executed. But I'm asking myself, what do you have in place for companies like where I work that we think we are involved in a lot of activities that are reducing emission every day, but we do not have a very well laid out framework of how to be able to translate those activities to be able to attract even the capital you talked about. So what do we need to do? Because what are you doing to help people like us to be able to translate our activities into bankable projects that can attract this capital from emission reduction?
I think that's a good question, and I think the best time will be now, right? We're at the stage where we're formulating and putting out the guidelines for this. We see carbon finance playing a very important role in helping provide alternative source of finance into the country. And it will be good to it will be best to tailor these solutions across practical solutions with practical experience like yours. So I think this is the right time to get you into the room, and so that we can start to tailor those conversations rightly. But I will allow CarbonAi provide better view. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. I talked about the analogy of straight to wireless earlier, which is the ability for Nigeria and other countries to be able to adopt new technologies, to be able to bring a certain service or an outcome to a community. And I think the analogy that's relevant to your question is digital trust infrastructure, which ensures, for example, that emission reductions associated with a project are real. The great thing about that technology, and we happen to be one of the companies that develops that type of technology, is that it's very democratic, meaning what we're trying to do is ensure that a project, for example, a project located here in Alberta, traditionally, that project may be more attractive to an investor or to a buyer because it's seen to be in a jurisdiction that has a strong regulatory framework. There's measurement, reporting, and verification standards that are in place that you can ensure that that ton or that outcome is real. With digital trust infrastructure, I think what we're showing right now in places like Nigeria is that a project that is located in Nigeria from a quality standpoint, from an integrity standpoint, can be on par with a project in a place like Canada, because the digital trust infrastructure that supports the claims proves the provenance, proves that it is integral and real. And the cost associated with that technology has come down significantly. So it really democratizes or makes it possible for a project in your community to hopefully be able to secure funding and financing and be able to sell those reductions. So be happy to chat afterwards, but hopefully that helps answer your question.
Thank you so much, Ivan and Mr. Chijioke, for that. And thank you for asking the question. Like he said, please feel free afterwards to network, and we can take it from there. So once again, I think we've come to the end of today's session. I just want to thank everyone for their time and for your presence. Being here means a lot to us, and we really hope you have some takeaways from this. And just before we call it a day, I'd like to hand over to our partner, Mr. Ivan, to take us through a brief closing remark. Thank you very much. Oh, and to our online participants and panelists, thank you as well for taking the time to join, especially considering the time difference in Nigeria. Thank you so much, Mr. Olamide. Mr. Ivan.
Thank you so much, Akene. And to Managing Director Zoho and the entire GACN team, thank you so much for partnering with us on this event. It's always great to work with great people, and we're really pleased to have worked with you on this event. I think today we've heard, if I can try to summarize some of the great insights that we got from our various panelists and presenters, a few things I heard is gas is at the center. Energy access is really important. Flare to value is a huge opportunity. One of the other insights that I think is maybe really interesting is dialogue to action. And I think what I'd like to challenge those of us in this room is next year, when we're hopefully back here again, that we will be talking about some of those action and initiatives to answer some of the questions that have been raised today about what's actually being done. I'm really excited about the opportunities that we're part of right now and the ability to come back here next year working with our great friends at GACN to talk about some of those actions that are taking place between Nigerian and Canadian entities and partners. So thank you so much for being with us here today.